Imagine this. You're standing in a room full of people you've known for years. You smile when expected. You nod in agreement at all the right moments. You laugh on cue. And yet, something in your chest feels like it's quietly caving in. The conversation flows around you like a river, but you're not really in it. You're playing a role, one you've rehearsed so well, even you almost believe it. Almost. But not quite. Because beneath that carefully curated personality, beneath the mask, you feel something raw, something unshaped pressing against the walls of your skin. It's not anxiety. It's not depression. It's something harder to name. You. The real you. The one you've buried under layers of politeness, performance, survival. The one who stayed quiet to stay safe. Who learned to please, to blend, to disappear. And now, it wants out. But here's the paradox. The moment you even consider letting it out, everything inside you clenches with fear. What if people don't like the real me? What if I lose everything I've built? What if I become unrecognizable to them and even to myself? You've heard the mantras, be yourself, live your truth, follow your path. But what they don't tell you is this: becoming your true self comes with a cost. A steep one. It is not a gentle unfolding. It's a death. A death of your masks, your personas, your comfort. It means outgrowing people who loved the version of you that never challenged them. It means walking away from careers built on what you could do rather than what you must. It means setting fire to the false stability of a life built on compromise. So you hesitate. You stall. You tell yourself you need more time, more clarity, more safety. But that quiet ache never leaves. That haunting suspicion that you're not really living, just performing life with remarkable precision. And then one day, you ask the question that starts everything. What is the price of becoming my true self? And is it worth paying? Because here's the brutal truth. The cost of becoming yourself is everything that isn't really you. And most people would rather live a lifetime as a stranger than risk that kind of loss. But what they don't realize is this: the real loss is never becoming who you were born to be. And the moment you understand that, the real journey begins. The hidden problem and its psychological/philosophical roots. Why is becoming your true self so terrifying? Because you weren't just taught to survive. You were taught to perform, to belong, to be acceptable. From the moment you could speak, you were handed scripts. Be polite. Be quiet. Be strong. Be agreeable. Be ambitious, but not too ambitious. Be unique, but not weird. Be honest, but not disruptive. Be yourself, but only the parts that are easy to love. This is the invisible contract society signs with your soul. If you play the part well enough, you'll be safe. And it works, for a while. You get praised, promoted, chosen. You learn to anticipate what others want and become exactly that. You confuse approval with affection. You mistake achievement for identity. And slowly, quietly, the real you slips beneath the surface, unwelcome, unseen, inconvenient. Carl Jung called this the persona, the social mask we wear to adapt to the world around us. Necessary, yes, but dangerous when mistaken for the whole self. Because behind every persona lies the shadow, the parts of you that were exiled in order to fit in. Desire, anger, sensitivity, creativity, vulnerability, all the traits that made you whole, banished so you could be good. And yet, the shadow doesn't disappear. It waits. It festers. It shows up as anxiety, addiction, disconnection, depression. Not because something is wrong with you, but because something essential in you has been abandoned. Philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre called this mauvaise foi, or bad faith, a life lived in denial of one's freedom, pretending to be what one is not to avoid the terror of authentic choice. Most people don't lie to others as much as they lie to themselves. They say, "This is who I am," when deep down they know they're just fulfilling someone else's idea of who they should be. And why? Because truth is costly. Arthur Schopenhauer wrote that human beings are driven by the will to live, a force that often prioritizes comfort over consciousness. In this framework, it's easier to maintain the illusion than risk the pain of seeing clearly. Easier to stay in the familiar than walk into the unknown. Easier to be liked than to be real. We think becoming our true self will feel like arrival, like homecoming. But in reality, it begins as exile. To become yourself, you must first betray the identity that everyone else accepted. You must lose before you can gain. You must die before you can live. This is the psychological and philosophical crucible of authenticity. To become whole, you must dismantle the version of yourself that was built for survival. And that means grief. Grief for the years lost in pretending. Grief for the friendships that can't follow you. Grief for the identity you thought was real, but was just rehearsed. This is why most people never take the journey. They think becoming themselves will give them peace. But first, it gives them pain. Still, something in you knows, the pain of truth is cleaner than the comfort of illusion. And that knowing, that tiny ember inside you, is the beginning of something sacred. Something dangerous. Something real. The unseen consequences. Not becoming your true self doesn't just delay your growth. It distorts your entire reality. You can fake your way through life. Many do. They marry the right person, take the respectable job, host the dinner parties, post the smiling pictures. From the outside, it looks like success. But on the inside, there's a quiet ache. A low-grade spiritual exhaustion that never quite goes away. You wake up with a life that technically works, but doesn't feel alive. You laugh, but it doesn't reach your eyes. You rest, but you don't feel restored. You succeed, but you can't shake the sense that you're climbing someone else's ladder. And here lies the most dangerous part. The world will reward your inauthenticity. It will applaud your mask, promote your persona, praise your ability to suppress what makes you inconvenient. But every time you betray yourself for belonging, something essential erodes. Not all at once. Slowly, subtly, like a song you can no longer hear but vaguely remember loving. You become fluent in the language of performance, but forget how to speak your native tongue. Neurologically, the consequences are real. Studies on emotional suppression show that denying core aspects of ourselves activates the brain's threat response. We begin to associate authenticity with danger and conformity with safety. Over time, the nervous system learns that silence is survival. So you stop asking questions. You avoid the mirror. You rationalize the weight in your chest as stress, not sorrow. And the longer you live this way, the more it bleeds into everything. Your relationships become transactional, exchanges of roles, not truths. Your passions feel forced or forgotten. Your sense of purpose shrinks to maintenance. Just get through the week, just make it to Friday, just hold it together. This is the tragedy of the functional imposter, the person who does everything right and still feels wrong. Not because they're broken, but because they've never actually been themselves. But here's the cruel twist. The longer you delay becoming who you are, the more painful it becomes to even consider. Because you've built things now. A career, a reputation, a family, a lifestyle. To dismantle the false self feels like destroying everything. So you settle. You cope. You convince yourself this is just what adulthood feels like. You romanticize nostalgia, medicate discomfort, avoid silence. Anything to distract from the truth that keeps tapping at your spine. This isn't it. And yet, there are cracks in the illusion. The sudden tears when a song hits a little too close. The ache of watching someone else live freely. The quiet envy of people who are messy but real. Those cracks are sacred. They are not your weakness. They are your invitation. Because what you resist feeling is not the fear of losing your life. It's the fear of losing your false one. And that distinction matters more than anything. Because if the false life can fall apart, maybe it's not worth protecting. And if what's left is you, raw, real, uncertain, maybe that's not a breakdown. Maybe that's the beginning of your becoming. The rebellion, how to break free. You don't escape the false self by running faster. You escape it by stopping. Stopping the performance. Stopping the compulsive pleasing. Stopping the constant calculation of who you need to be enough. And in that pause, in that terrifying, electrifying pause, you begin to hear something faint but familiar, yourself. The rebellion doesn't start with shouting. It begins with silence. The kind of silence that strips away noise and invites truth to rise from the wreckage. Because becoming your true self isn't about becoming new. It's about remembering what you buried to survive. Start there. Not with a grand plan. Not with a brand new identity. But with the smallest, most radical act. Telling yourself the truth. I'm not happy here. I've outgrown this version of me. I've been pretending for too long. Say it. Let it echo inside the life you built. Don't fix it. Don't package it. Just feel it. Then comes the next step, the one that separates the seekers from the revolutionaries. Alignment. You begin to align what you say with what you mean. What you feel with what you express. What you value with how you live. At first, it feels impossible. Saying no to people you've always pleased. Stepping back from roles that once gave you identity. Sitting in the discomfort of not knowing who you are without the act. But stay with it. Because this isn't self-sabotage. This is soul reclamation. You are not breaking things to destroy your life. You are breaking things that were never yours to hold. And slowly, the rebellion deepens. You stop forcing smiles. You stop apologizing for your depth. You stop shrinking to fit into spaces you've long outgrown. You begin to speak more slowly, because your words matter now. You begin to walk more freely, because your body no longer carries the weight of pretending. You begin to love differently, less from fear, more from truth. This is what Viktor Frankl called the defiant power of the human spirit, the ability to choose meaning even in the face of loss, uncertainty, and suffering. You are not just waking up to who you are. You are reclaiming the authority to live from it. You don't need permission. You need conviction. You don't need a roadmap. You need honest questions. Who am I when I'm not performing? What do I know in my bones that I've been afraid to admit? What parts of me are waiting to be unburied? And then, you begin the excavation. You start creating, not to be seen, but to feel alive. You start connecting, not to impress, but to be understood. You start dreaming again, not because it's practical, but because it's yours. And yes, it will cost you. It will cost you certainty, approval, predictability. But in return, it will give you back your fire. The real rebellion isn't against society. It's against the lie that you ever had to be anything other than yourself. This is not reinvention. This is resurrection. And what rises from those ashes, imperfect, fierce, unedited, is the life you were meant to live. The ultimate truth. The final, most powerful realization. There comes a moment, quiet, weighty, undeniable, when you realize becoming your true self doesn't lead to perfection. It leads to freedom. Not the kind of freedom you were taught to chase. Not status. Not comfort. Not applause. But the raw, trembling freedom of no longer needing to pretend. This is the final truth. You were never meant to be admired. You were meant to be whole. And wholeness is not curated. It is not always pretty. It is not always easy to hold. Wholeness is honest. It means you'll cry in places you used to perform. It means you'll tell the truth even when your voice shakes. It means you'll outgrow people who only knew your mask, and love the ones who wait for your eyes to return. Becoming your true self is not a glow-up. It is a stripping down, a dissolving of roles, a letting go of false peace. It is remembering that you are not here to be palatable. You are here to be real. And yes, there will be grief. Because when you leave behind the false self, you are also leaving behind its rewards. The ease of fitting in, the illusion of certainty, the comfort of never being truly known. But in their place, you gain something far rarer. Self-respect, self-trust, self-ownership. You no longer outsource your identity to what people expect. You no longer perform emotions to keep the peace. You no longer wake up dreading a life that never fit your skin. You walk through the world a little quieter now, because you no longer have to scream to be heard. You feel a little lighter, because you're no longer dragging a self that wasn't yours. And you connect differently. Not to be validated, but to be seen. The final and most powerful realization is this. The cost of becoming yourself is everything that was keeping you from you. But the reward is everything you've been longing for but couldn't name. peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. Joy that isn't performative. A sense of purpose that rises from your bones, not a checklist. And maybe most beautifully of all, the ability to look in the mirror and not feel like a stranger. The world won't always celebrate this transformation. It won't always clap when you stop performing. It might resist you. It might misunderstand you. But it cannot own you anymore. Because you are no longer surviving your life. You are inhabiting it. Fully. Unapologetically. Finally. This is the price of becoming your true self. And once you've paid it, once you've walked through that fire and stood in your own skin with nothing left to hide, you'll realize something wild and holy. It was never too much. It was never too late. It was always you. The journey doesn't end here. But now, for the first time, you are truly the one walking it.